Hey everyone, welcome back to Didikanku with your host David. Today we have a very special guest. He's a good friend of mine, a former colleague as well. He is a college counselor, a student coach, and the founder of Nextract Consulting. So his name is Abhinav, and Abhinav, welcome to our channel.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having me here. Super exciting to see everything that you've been doing. And yeah, I'm very, very excited to be here and just share my journey with your viewers as well.
Well, it's great to have you, and I know you're a busy person. So thank you for your time and coming on and sharing. But for some of our viewers who aren't really familiar with you, aren't really familiar with what Nextract does and what is student counseling or student coaching, could you tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up founding Nextract?
Absolutely. I mean, I hope everyone has time because this ends up being a long story, but I'll try and keep it short. So I'm from India. I was, born and raised in New Delhi, and I'm currently in India as well. But I was a football player, soccer player. Those of you who are Americans or who have studied in America, so we'll use soccer for that purpose. So I played soccer at a high level in India. I got to like the national camp till a certain point, and then I started looking for opportunities just overseas because India didn't really have the right infrastructure for it at the time, while also balancing education. And I found a good high school in England. I moved there for my last 3 years of high school, played at a good level, and then while I was there, I found out that US colleges have a really interesting concept, something called being a student athlete.
Mm-hmm.
So, which meant that you can go to the US, play the sport you love, get a scholarship for it, and get a good education.
Wow.
So that's exactly what I did. I moved for soccer while studying. I did a double major in sports administration and business administration. And once I graduated, in my last semester, I kind of knew that I wanted to get in this sort of field because when I was in England, I engaged with a company who helped me throughout the process, and because it was quite complicated, we had to reach out to college coaches, try and get in touch with them, and especially when you're doing that from a different country altogether, you're not in America. It's not very easy.
Right.
So I decided that that's a space I wanted to kind of be in, and I thought about continuing soccer as well at a professional level, but I think the opportunities that came my way were not as attractive. So I decided let's go on to that path where I can guide student athletes now because I was in that situation a few years ago.
Right.
And I started working with this American company, but I started doing that in India. So I started trying to get them clients who are in India, but the company was based in the US. Did that for about 8 months or so. I was just running the whole thing on my own in India, and as a first job, it was great, but it was also tough because there wasn't a lot of learning. I thought because I thought I was running around and doing things on my own, which was great from an entrepreneurial aspect.
Right.
But I think I didn't have a mentor or I didn't have anyone to learn from. And in some ways, fortunately, somebody reached out to me, another company who was doing this in Asia, and I decided, okay, I'll join them, and hopefully that'll help me grow a little more as well. And I did grow with them for about 2.5 years. I did pretty well. I actually became their head of counseling for India, but I also worked with a lot of students and athletes in Singapore, Philippines, Indonesia, and that's how, of course, you and I met, David.
Right.
And
yeah, that's exactly how we met.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
what about founding Nextract?
I think that was something that was unexpected for me, to be honest. I didn't think that I will just start my own company. I mean, it's not something I was ever against, but I always I was very comfortable working where I was working, but I think over time, as you discover yourself more in your 20s, you start to realize what matters to you. And I realized client servicing and client engagement, that I was very passionate about that. I was very passionate about the fact that I wanted to make sure everyone who I worked with got a very good service, and there were no compromises whatsoever.
Mm.
But what started happening in my job is there were lots of compromises, and there were compromises because of, well, can we do more sales and less counseling? And can a junior counselor now work with a client who, they cannot really help them, and the senior management needs to come in, but doesn't have the time, and lots of difference of opinions, I think.
Right.
And
So sorry, I just want to kind of cut you off here. Sorry for cutting you off, by the way. But there's something here that resonates with me, and is I want to know a little bit more, because it seems like throughout your journey you've always focused on excellence, which is around soccer, or in New Zealand we say football. And you really were dedicated to that sport. You tried to really be a good player. Obviously, you got into a good university in the US. I believe you got a full scholarship, if you said earlier.
about 60%,
Okay,
not
so
full, but yeah,
but yeah,
60%.
you got a scholar. Obviously, they saw the potential. You had that excellence, and that drive. So what I guess, my question is how have you always been driven to be the best at what you do? And sometimes they say that being a perfectionist or being really good at something can be a blessing and a curse. Have you ever felt that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when it comes to excellence, competition always drove me, but it wasn't just competition. I mean, there were times where I was just competing with myself. There was no one else competing in the same sort of thing or the same line that I was competing in. But I think it was just the fact that I always would just question that if I knew I could give it more, I would always want to. And I think at some level I wanted to be a perfectionist, but I was also okay not being one, because I don't think that ever hindered my progress. Because I'll give you a very, very funny example. When I graduated college, I graduated with a 3.95 GPA. In
Wow.
my whole entire college
Wow.
life, I had two B's. Everything else was an A. And
There
one
you
of my
go. I mean, that
professors,
just proves your excellent, your drive for
but
excellence. You're proving
but
my
I'll tell
point
you this.
here.
Yeah, but there was this funny instance where one of my sports professors, he told me I would normally top all of his classes, and he told me that, hey, Abhinav, you're sitting on a 91, and there's a girl in class who's sitting on a 95.
Mm,
I said, well, you know what? His name is Doctor or something. I'll just call him Dr. P. I was
okay.
like, you know what, Dr. P, I'm struggling with another class where I have an 88. And I would rather get that 88 up to a 91 than
Mm,
get that 91 to a 95.
mm,
Because getting that 88 to a 91 and sticking on 91 in your class gets me two ways. Getting to 91 to 94, putting in a 3% extra gets me, still gets me an A, but also gets me a B in the other class. So I was always very focused about like how much work and time do I need to put into something to just get the best result. But
right,
it didn't have to be 100. If
right.
the outcome was still an A, even at 90%, I was okay with the 90%. My goal was, okay, if I can secure 90 or 91 here, which are the other classes I'm struggling in? How do I get those up to 90? Rather
Mm,
than trying to get 100 in one class, but then get
mm.
85 in another.
So like
So that was,
rather than focusing on what you're already good at and trying to perfect that, you looked back at, oh, what are some things that I'm not that good at, and how can I make that better? So you were focusing not, I guess, on perfection, but on overall excellence and not perfection in
Absolutely.
a specific thing.
Yeah.
And so my
And
question, sorry, go ahead.
yeah. No, I was just saying, now that you actually put it like that, I can think of it, and it works today in my life, because
That,
when I'm running Nextract, I'm looking at college counseling. I
right,
know how to talk to parents, know how to talk to
right.
kids, connect with parents and kids, also look at sales, also look at marketing, also look at
Mm,
improving systems. And in some ways, when you're running a small business, I think you have to be good at a lot of things. It
right,
cannot just be you're an expert at one thing.
right.
You do need to have an overall knowledge base of a lot of different things. You can
Right.
always hire experts for specific things.
Mm.
But I do think, especially in small businesses, it's very useful to have, extensive knowledge of lots of different fields.
Right. And you've kind of answered the question I was going to ask, which is how has that translated into what you do now? And I think you've already answered that.
Yeah.
But you know, there's a saying that some people like to say, a saying that goes, a jack of all trades is an expert in none. Um, and kind of what you just said is it's good to be a jack of all trades. It's good to know a little bit about this and that, and at least have enough competency, if not perfection, but at least up to a high enough level. So what do you
Yeah.
say to those people who say that I need to specialize? I can't be a jack of all trades. I need to focus on one thing. What would you say to those people, or yeah, to those students? Or
Yeah. I think it's just, if you add context to that statement makes sense. It's just how you want to see it. So for
mm,
example, today we focus as a company, we focus a lot on US admissions,
yeah,
but we only focus on undergrad. We've started doing UK, we've started doing Australia, we've started doing Canada,
yeah,
and I know we're good at it. But one thing, I've had parents in the last year who've come to me and said, my child wants to apply for a master's, and can you help them? And
mm,
honestly, in some ways, I know I can, but I don't want to begin that, because I'm still trying to be an expert at just the undergrad level. So over
absolutely.
the years, I was focused on US.
Hmm.
Over the last year, we started opening up to UK and other countries. But if anyone comes to me for a master's, for an MBA, for a PhD, I tell them, I'm sorry, but I cannot help you.
Mm,
Indian college admissions is becoming a big thing now. There's lots of private universities in India. If
right.
someone comes to me and says, can we get your help over there? The answer is no, because that's not
Mm,
something I can do. So I would say, in that context, I'm still trying to make sure I am an expert in one of those fields. But
mm,
yeah, if you think of it from a perspective of running a company, when
mm,
I started this company, we're not funded, so we're bootstrapped,
right.
right? And when you're in that situation, you have to be ready to do a lot of things on your own for a long time, till
Mm,
you have enough money to hire and to get other people on board. But
mm,
when it comes to accounting,
right.
when it comes to running your own business,
Right.
doing projections in terms of how how much money do you need to sustain,
Right.
while also making sure that the work and the service that you have is good, and how is that getting better. So I think there's a balance of both things. I do feel that it's very important to be competent in various different things,
Mm,
but when you're doing that, also try and understand what makes you special. Why are you valuable versus another college counselor in my field? So
right.
you still have to be an expert in certain fields, but let's say the pandemic hit us, right? And now the US admissions haven't been impacted as much as we thought they would be.
Mm,
But let's say today India builds 20 different universities in the next 5 years, and
mm,
suddenly your expertise of US universities now has to shift somewhere else.
mm, okay.
So you also have to be adaptable these days. I mean, the
Right.
industry and the job market and everything is changing so quickly
Right.
every single year that I almost
Right.
think it's dangerous to just have one or two skill sets. It's dangerous to just be good at just one or two things. I'm
Right.
not saying you have to be an expert at everything,
Right.
but I am saying it really helps you to know that today, if I'm let go of a job or the business doesn't work, do I have a skill set which I can use somewhere else? If
Right.
I'm being honest, my skill set is actually developing relationships, making
Mm.
people understand what's good for them. That's the
Mm.
skill set. I just choose to use that in a college counseling field. But if I choose to use that in a different field, I can transfer it somewhere else,
Right.
right? So
Right.
it's important to
So
understand that.
sorry. So what it sounds like is, I mean, thinking of that context, we need to think on a broader level, which is we need to understand what are our strengths, what are our experiences, and how can we use that as assets to differentiate ourselves. And I guess for you,
Absolutely.
you have a market that you need to be able to say, okay, this is what's different. And what it sounds like is, again, it's a broader context. Yes, you know a little bit of this about your company, but when it comes to the actual service you're providing, you're very kind of focused on what you're good at, what your experience is. And even you said like your strength is relationships, making people understand. So how were you able to discover that? You know, a lot of people try to think like, what are my strengths? What can I do to be different than anyone else? And it sounds like you were able to figure this out. Okay, my core strength, as you mentioned, is relationships, making people understand, and then I'm going to apply this to help people on their journey into getting a scholarship as an athletic applicant in a top US country, because that's what you did. You had that experience, so you can share that journey. But how did you discover that core value, I guess, that you could then decide, okay, I'm going to apply it in this area?
Yeah, I think it took a while. I feel I only really discovered that I established that last year. I think until then, it's something that I knew that maybe this is a strength, maybe this is not. I wasn't too sure. And the way I discovered it is because I realized that, there a friend of mine, he works with an executive search firm where they try and hire CXOs for big companies and things like that. And he told me that, this is actually something you'll be good at because you're very good at sort of talking to people and convincing them to do something, or
Mm.
having a little bit of influence on them and making them understand why they should do certain things in a positive way. And that got me thinking. And when I moved to the UK, when this was back in high school, I remember there were other students and their sort of parents who wanted to meet me in my summer holidays to ask me, okay, how did you decide? Is this something good for our child?
Right.
And I was in grade 11 or grade 12, sitting with
Mm.
my
Wow.
father and somebody else and telling them, and these are kids who are only 1 or 2 years younger to me and their
Mm.
parents, that this is why this is a good opportunity, this is why it's not a good opportunity. And it turned out eventually some of them ended up going to those places, ended up going to those schools,
Wow.
ended up going to that college. And it never really hit me, right? It never really hit
Right.
me. I only looked back and thought about it. And I was like, hey, I was able to convince somebody when I was in grade 12 to go to the same school that I went to in England and
Right.
spend that kind of money. And I couldn't believe it. So similar experiences happened in college where people were down and about and they needed help. They needed someone to mentor them. I think I was there. And I started realizing that in my personal life, uh, there were so many friendships and so many relationships that I had where if I had to seek advice, I would perhaps reach out to one or two people. but there were 15 people who were reaching out to me to seek advice. And I just realized there was something that I was able to offer people. And sometimes it was just being
Wow.
able to listen to them.
Right.
And but those were experiences I was having without consciously realizing that that's
Right.
strength. And when I left, my old company, well, not my company, but when I left my job last year,
Right.
I got a lot of calls from parents saying that, why are you leaving? Why are you sort of leaving this field? You're very good at what you do. And we only came and worked with the company because of you.
Mm.
And I didn't know that. I thought, well, I'm in a big company, so maybe that's why people come and work with us. But lots of parents, and remember, this was not in a personal relationship anymore. This was a
Right.
professional engagement. So
Right.
when in a professional engagement, I had more than like 20, 30 parents telling me that we really think you should be doing this because you're very good at this. You made us feel comfortable. My kid felt a bit scared. You work with a counselor, you provided that comfort.
Yeah.
That's when I really started realizing, I was like, wait, you know what? This is not something new. This has
Right.
been happening since I was a child, because maybe it was my personal relationship or a professional relationship, but this has been a pattern throughout. And I think it was only last year when I was really able to say this is a strength of mine. And now I actually know it. But I would also say to,
Mm.
like, your viewers, that sometimes you have strengths which you're not even aware about. It's
Mm.
just
Yes.
sitting down and, you know, introspecting a little bit on your experiences and understanding what were some of the good moments, where did you find success, and is there a common factor between those experiences? For me, that was building relationships. So
Yeah, I think that, I mean, think you hit the nail on the head right there with a lot of people who don't really know what their strengths are. Yes, you need to kind of ask yourself these deep questions, but also something you mentioned where actually other people, there is an external factor where other people are also telling you or giving you that encouragement. So is that what
yeah,
motivated you to now start your own company, Nextract Consulting?
yeah, in a lot of ways, yes, because it was something on my mind, but I never really gave it that much thought that I want to do counseling on my own. Or when I thought I'm gonna, resign my position in that old company, I thought, okay, this is it. I'm gonna move away from counseling. I think I'll look at a different industry, or I'll maybe look at further studies, things like that. But then, yeah, I just got like an overwhelming response, and I realized, well, I think I have a skill set, and
Yeah,
I'll be foolish to give that up so easily.
right,
So I thought, let's just go with this and see how the next year goes.
right.
And it's gone pretty well. We have alongside me, we have four employees now. We've been helping about 30, 40 students, which for just 13 months in a pandemic year, I think is
That's an
pretty good.
excellent
So
achievement. That's an excellent achievement. Yeah, definitely
yeah,
another attestment of your dedication to really providing good service and giving your all, giving your best to
yeah,
your clients. Otherwise, they wouldn't have said that, right? I think people usually
absolutely.
people usually either do two things. They complain or they're very happy and they compliment. Um, and it's a very fine line between those things. So,
Yeah,
but having that kind of it's important, I think, for the viewers here that you also need to look at what are other people saying. Like, ask yourself the question, what would someone say about me, about what they appreciate about me? Because it sounds like all these parents were saying, wow, Abhinav, we appreciate your dedication to getting our kids in, your time, your effort, and that helped you to, I guess, have that confidence that, this is my skill set. I'm good at these relationships. Is that Would you say that's accurate?
Absolutely. And I was actually going to go back to, one of the questions you asked me earlier, what drives you and how do you stay
Mm,
motivated?
yeah.
And now a lot of it is to do with, when you're working, I personally really care about how people talk about me.
Mm,
And, I'm not sitting and thinking, what is this person saying about me? I don't overthink like that. But I do care about how people are going to talk about the city I work in, the clients I work with, what sort of cities they are in, how my name is going to be spread across this country or the cities.
mm,
I care a lot about that.
mm,
And I know that the reason why I don't want to mess anything up and I want to provide really good results is because I want good information to be passed along when they talk about me
mm,
versus what previously happened in my old job very often is that if you didn't deliver something, I very soon realized that, well, the word spreads very easily. And
mm,
the company as a whole, along with a lot of the colleagues of mine, including myself, that
mhm,
word started spreading that, look, the company is this kind of a company. These are their values. And somebody will be like, go work with them because they did good for us. But someone said, don't work with them because they didn't do too well for us. And at
wow.
that time, I was like, you know what? That was also one of the things that motivated me to leave because I said, well, when I'm living in this country, I do not want people,
Mm,
especially, my parents' friends, because a lot
right,
of them are at that place where they're thinking of college counselors,
right,
right? And I don't want people to be hearing things like Abhinav did not provide a good service, or we were disappointed with Abhinav's service.
right,
And I just wanted that to be good all the time. I still do. So I
right,
think that becomes a huge motivating factor. Even the days where you feel lazy or you don't want to do
right.
something, I think that thought just drives me quite a lot. And I used
Mm,
to question this sometimes that is it the fear that drives me, fear of letting them down, or is it the thought that I'm going to make them so happy that drives me? And I'm still not
mm.
able to figure that out. Is it the
Well,
fear of losing my name, or is it the happiness that my name will gain as I do well? But
Well,
either way, it
I
it
want to
drives
do a
me.
little bit of analysis here because from what I'm hearing, it seems like you've already focused on an outcome. So you've thought about your strengths, your journey, your experience, your assets, and now you've also even gone taken it to the next level where you're thinking of what outcome do I want to achieve? And when I say outcome, I don't mean, oh, get as many students into top college. I mean, the outcome here from what I'm hearing is I want to have a good reputation. I want
Yeah,
to have a good legacy. I want people to hear my name or hear my company and say, okay, this is a company I trust. This is a person that I know will get the job done, and this is a person I know will be honest to me, no matter, even if I don't want to hear it. So this is kind of, I guess it's a little bit of analysis from my psychology background, but I think that's really important to viewers as well,
yeah,
that you have to think of your outcome. What is the outcome you want to achieve? And again, I want to reiterate, outcome isn't how much money I want to make. Outcome isn't how many clients I want to take on or how big I want to build my business, but it's what do I want to leave behind? What do I want people to say about me? And what do I want my legacy to be? And I think that really helps people to find their purpose, right?
yeah.
And you can comment on this, of course, if what do you think of that analysis?
I totally agree. So I think you nailed it in terms of legacy, and I never think of it as legacy, but yeah, I think of it as how do you want to be known in your community and in the place you live in. I think that's really important, and I think what really started exciting me over the last few years is also that I live in New Delhi,
Mhm.
and but there are people who come to us even from other cities in India, like Bangalore, like Mumbai, which is exciting because that tells me, and this is all word of mouth, which tells me, you know what, there is somebody sitting in Mumbai right now telling somebody else about me, which is
Right.
really exciting, which is really nice because I don't even live there, but somehow I've made some impact in that community, that another parent from that community is reaching out to me without me making any effort. So
Mm,
it's, I think those things really drive me and really excite me.
mm. Well, so again, I think there's a message there where you're being genuine and people see that authenticity, that really genuineness coming from you, to where it actually helps you with your business. You don't have to go out there and convince people, hey, you can trust me, because
Yeah.
you've already had that kind of mindset. This is the outcome I want. I want people to trust me, to see me as reliable. And
Yeah.
I think that's a very important message to our viewers as well. I mean, whether you run a company, whether you work in a company, whether you're about to start in a company, know your outcome, be genuine, be authentic. Don't try to don't try to be someone you're not. And I think that's something that you've done very well. And I mean, obviously, the success that you've achieved really shows that. Um, so I do want to ask you though, like, what are some challenges that you do have when you're helping some of these students or when you're talking to some of the parents? um, you've gained their trust, they've come to you, they know you're reliable. Are there challenges or
Mhm.
not? And if there are, like, what are some of the usual challenges?
Yeah, I think in terms of challenges, the biggest thing that ends up being is, especially working with students and even parents, is that sometimes expectations can be extremely high, in terms
Hmm.
of what they feel they can achieve. And what unfortunately what students and parents often forget is that whenever I meet parents, look, it's very natural that every parent thinks that, look, my child is special and they're doing really well, and more often than not they are doing pretty well. They're getting 90% or A's in their school. But unfortunately, if you look at the sheer number of schools that exist in a
Hmm.
country, and then look at just Asia, and then look at Asia, Australia, Europe, and all other continents, and all these students are competing for some of the top universities in the world,
Hmm.
you can be a perfect student, but it still does not guarantee you anything. So I
Right.
think very often it's the expectations that parents feel that, oh, our child has to go to this university, or
Hmm.
it's almost like as if their career is ruined. And I try and explain that to parents that, look, it's not the end of the world if that doesn't happen. That's something that I want that outcome to happen for your child, but very often it doesn't happen, and that doesn't mean you're not going to succeed in life, right? That important message is very useful for parents to hear, even though when they're going through the journey, there is a lot of irrationality, I would say, where when you're going through the process, you're not thinking rationally because it's your child. And I've often seen when it
Right.
comes to parents, sometimes that rationale is lost when it comes to their children. They want to make a lot of things happen, which
Hmm.
a lot of times excites me. But yeah, it's very important for them to learn that it's not going to be the end of the world, and that challenge. I mean, I also discovered over the years that when you're taking on a client, if you just set their expectations straight up from day one, that's the most useful thing.
Right.
Uh, there are, you could take the approach where if you want to get a sale and just make quick money, if a parent comes and tells you, I want to go to a top 10
Right.
college, you
So
can
that
tell them,
kind
hey,
of
you're
goes
good enough
back
to.
to you being honest, being authentic,
Exactly.
being
I've
genuine,
had
saying
Yeah,
it
I've
as it
had
is.
clients who've said no, who've said no to me, saying, "Oh, we just don't think you can get what we want for our child." And I say, "Okay, well, that's okay with me. Maybe there's somebody else
How
out there who
about how
believes you
about the
can."
other way around? Have you ever had to say no to a client?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a student recently who just, I think, spoke to me in May, and he wanted to go to college in like August.
Mm.
And I was like, that's
Wow.
just not going to happen. It's not possible. And he said, oh, we're willing to pay more money. I said, well, that's not going to do anything for me because it's also, if it's just not possible, it's not possible. I don't
Okay.
want your money if I feel the chance is 1%.
Right.
So,
Right.
but then he actually
That
signed up with
sounds
us,
like
and I
mad
think,
expectations though from
yeah, right.
it's,
So I said, well, just because you're late and you're ready to pay more, that doesn't mean I can just move my magic wand and make something happen. But I think maybe because
right.
we were so genuine with that student and that family, they actually did end up signing up, but for
Mm.
an admission cycle in January. So they said,
Okay.
okay, what's realistic? We don't want to wait a year. I said, well, January is an option for you, and they said, well, we like that, and 10 days later they had sort of signed up. But
Oh, so
yeah,
so
and
you
there
didn't
have been
actually
other
say
cases.
no. So you didn't actually say no. I can't take you on. You just said, you know what you want is not realistic, and I cannot deliver that, and I don't want to promise I can deliver that, but this is what I can deliver.
Yeah,
This is what I can do. And at the end of the day, they appreciated that and they signed on. Wow,
right.
I mean, that's a very, I think that's a very important message. You know, some people lose focus of what is really important. They think, especially in sales, I think a lot of the times it happens where you just overpromise. I mean, I've had a
Yeah,
lot of experience being in as like a service manager in one of my previous companies, arguing with sales because they're just over promising. They're saying things that can't be done.
over
Uh,
promise, under deliver. Yeah,
exactly, exactly. So it really kind of resonates here that be honest. And if we're honest and people see that we genuinely want to help them, you know, they do. From this story you've said, they do take on your advice and they do actually realize that. But I
yeah.
do want to ask you something now. You talked a bit about the parents. You know, there's a saying that parents will do anything for their child except let them be themselves. Have you ever met this situation where the parents were like, I want my kid to go to this universe, I want my kid to go to an Ivy League, I don't care. And the kid is like, he's telling you maybe it behind their backs, I don't want to, so much stress. Has this happened? And what would you say to the parents, or what would you say to the child? Like, do you motivate the child, or do you try to coach the parents to um, to do what's best for the child?
A little bit of both, and I always used to think that you have to listen to the child and you have to see what's important to them.
Mm,
Uh, but recently, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and she went to a very good university in the US. And what she told me is that she wasn't preparing for the whole experience in a very structured way. And it was the parents who just pushed her really, really hard at the end of the process and got her to a top university. And she went to that top university and she's doing really well today. But
mm,
she looks back at that whole experience and says that, you know what, like I'm so glad like my parents pushed me that much because I would not be here.
mm.
So I've also seen this other side where sometimes parents know what they're doing for their children,
Yep.
and children just do not know that, okay, this is something good for us. So I do really believe that everyone should follow their heart and everyone should do what they want to do. But I think, there has to be a balance. There has to be a
Right.
balance between the parent cannot be overpowering the kid's life,
Yep.
right? There has to be some understanding from them, and I would definitely coach them. I've had lots of conversations with parents on the side where I'll tell them, look, you do need to back off a little bit. And if this is the message you're trying to portray, I understand that it's a good message, let me speak to your child. Let's see how they take it. And sometimes that kid will take that in a good way. Sometimes
Right.
they will not.
Well, how about
And so,
yourself? Like, how about yourself um, challenging the child? Do you do that as well? Like, if you know that this
yes,
kid has potential, but
potential. Yes,
maybe they're stuck in a comfort zone. Do you, as the counselor, as the student coach,
yes,
push them and challenge them? And how do you do that?
absolutely. So that's exactly what I was getting at. That the only situation where I would really push the child and I would really want them to sort of try and extend their limits is when I know they've got potential, is when I can see that they're extremely hardworking, they are smart, they are able to take things on, but it's stressful for them. So I get that. So then I'll try and help them in any way possible. I'll give you an example of this one student I'm helping now. And she is actually very, very talented, doing a lot of different things academically. And she's doing a research paper with a very successful PhD student and lots of different things.
Yeah,
But she keeps getting burnt out every few months because there's so much to do. And I don't
right,
blame her. I mean,
right.
when you're 17, I wasn't sitting and doing the things that my clients are doing today.
I
it's
don't
it's
think
a
I was
different time.
either.
Yeah, the times are different. It's just
Right,
getting more and more competitive every
absolutely.
year. So every 5 years, the kids are like, there's so much stress,
Right.
right? Plus they're doing online schooling now for the last year and a half.
Yeah.
There's no social life to their high school experience. It's
Mm,
really tough. and
mm,
and they get burnt out, which is normal. So
mm,
then I told her, look, I need you to do this one thing. And she said, I'm finding it tough. I said, well, let's find a way to do it. She
mm,
said, okay, what I need is then I need to figure out how do I organize my time. And I
mm,
said to her, let's have a call every single Monday. And every Monday morning, we have a call and we chart out her weekly agenda.
mm.
So we literally put down tasks in a Google Calendar.
Yeah.
And initially, she would tell me, I used to think that I could have an 8 hour productive day. But then I realized after 3 hours, I need a break. And
Right.
suddenly my whole plan goes to, excuse my language, goes to shit. And
It's
and
okay.
I
That
said, well,
language is
let's.
accepted here.
So I said, well, let's incorporate the break periods in this, right? Because that's important.
Right.
So now every time we do her schedule, we'll do 2.5 hours, 40 minutes break, 3 hours of work, 1 hour of break, and things like that. So she's just gotten into a little more of a systematic uh, organization way where she's planned everything out, and I know she's disciplined. So what I knew about her is that she's a very disciplined kid. So
Yeah.
I just knew that if we build a plan,
Yeah.
incorporating the breaks in, she's going to be very disciplined and follow that. Now, there are other students who cannot follow plans at all. They're just ad hoc. They'll start their work at 2 a.m. and work till 7 a.m. That's okay. I just constantly push them in some ways. So it
Right.
just depends. It just depends where I
So,
feel that their kid has potential.
yeah.
I'll push them, but I'll also tell the parent that, look, you need to push them in this way.
Right.
Sometimes parents can get a bit harsh on their
Right.
on their kids, and they're like, you're not doing this, you're not doing this, you're
Right.
lazy. And very often these parents are like, for the kids, they are like role models. They look up to their parents, and sometimes
Right.
hearing those things, it's not that easy.
Yeah.
And vice versa, we have students who are not doing very well academically, and their potential can only get them so much.
Right.
Uh, so then we also have to explain to the parents that, look, you have to see what are their strengths and let's play to that.
Wow.
And
I'm sorry.
I've been realizing though,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
I need to cut you off here, but
That's cool.
something that a lot of what I'm hearing here again is really your ability to read. What does this student need?
100%.
What does that student need? What are the parents doing, or what could they do to fulfill this person's need? And I think that goes back to the beginning of the conversation where you knew your strength is influencing people well. When I say
Yeah,
influencing, but at least getting people to understand why they need to do things, why they need to push themselves, why they need to do these tasks or why they need to be better organized. So it kind of rounds up this discussion. And I want to keep going, Abhinav. This is
No.
really interesting stuff, but we're
Yeah.
running a bit out of time. And I want to get to this question, which is, let's say that a parent or a child, they want to get into a top university in the US. They're a bit hesitant though, like it's not cheap studying in the US. And maybe they have a few concerns. What would you say to those parents? Like, how can you, as a counselor, Nextract Consulting, help to put these parents' minds at ease? And I think you've already mentioned quite a lot with who you are, your standards, your authenticity. But still, like, what are the benefits of going to the US other than, you're going to a top university, or I guess there's a status, so to say. But what are the benefits for these students? And what if they're not athletes? What if they're just really good students? Should they still take this journey? What would you say to them?
Yeah. I think, first of all, I mean, we help student athletes, but we also help non-athletes. Student athlete is a domain where I started off from, 4 years ago, but over the years, we've been helping academic students as well. So that is something you can always do. In fact, most of the students that we help, 60% or 70% are actually academic students, and less of them are actually student athletes. So that is open for everybody. What I would also say is that it doesn't have to be just the US. You can look at lots of different countries. UK, of course, has always been up there. Canada is very good as well. Australia is coming up slowly. Lots of universities in Europe, Singapore. So there's a lot of good universities in various different countries. And I bring it back down to the parents' priorities. So when I meet parents, I really try and understand what is it that they want for that child. Some parents are okay paying, they're okay paying the full fees and they're able to afford it, and their kids have good grades. For those families, the goal should always be, let's try and go to the topmost colleges in the US. Now, sometimes you will find families where the grades are not very good. So they might be able to afford the education, but they may not reach the top colleges. And in those cases, as you start coming down the ranking list, there's lots of US colleges which offer you scholarships and financial aid. So even parents where they can pay, but we're focusing on colleges outside of the top 50 ranking, I would still encourage them to try and get scholarships, because you save money, right? When it's possible, then why not? And of course, families where affordance is an issue, it's always, scholarships are always available. There are lots of universities in Europe now that are very inexpensive. So it, again, just depends on your priorities, depends on your goal. Why study in the US? Why study overseas? I think obviously the education is far more superior at those universities than what we have here in Asia. I think maybe barring Singapore, that has a few very good universities. I think most of it isn't that good as the US perhaps and the UK. But more than that, more than the education, because I feel like the education component is catching up. I mean, I see that in India today, there's so many colleges coming up which are doing great things. I just think it's more than that. It's just a life experience. You asked me at the start, how did you go through these experiences? How did you become who you are today? And I can tell you, I wouldn't be this person if I had just stayed in India. I wouldn't be this person if I had not gone through all those experiences. So I think while I tell parents that, look, while it's a college education and it's a degree that you're getting, it's more than that. It's a life education, and you're building yourself holistically.
Yeah,
You're building skills that are really going to help you a lot
right.
in life.
I think that's a really important message, which is the life experiences that you can get. Yes, sure, you could stay where you are, you could go somewhere where I don't know, maybe is, as you said, families who are less affordable and they want to get somewhere, but at the end of the day, let's go back to outcome, right? Like, what is the outcome they
Hmm.
want to achieve? And what
Yeah,
experiences can they get along the way to get there? So that's
yeah,
a really powerful message, I think, that you're giving here to our listeners. And not just student athletes, but I think this applies to anyone who's
absolutely.
who's going through their career. I mean, consider where you've been, consider your outcome. Where do you want to go? What are your strengths? What are your assets? What's your priority, as you said, is
Yeah.
very important. Um, Abhinav, we could go on forever. We've actually gone over, the amount of time that I usually do. I like to keep this to 45 minutes. I think we've gone over. But I have one last question for you that I ask all my first time guests. And that is, let's say your time's come to an end. You've accomplished what you've wanted to accomplish. You kind of mentioned that you want to have a good reputation. I want to stick to that word legacy. You've created your legacy. Um, but now you're going to move on to a better place, and you can only leave two pearls of wisdom for everyone else left behind to remember you by. So everything else you have to take with you except these two pearls of wisdom. What would they be?
Hmm. That's a tough one. I think the first thing that I would want to leave behind is just that, just I mean, I would just say the biggest thing is like live life no matter what comes your way, because I think that's what I've done. I've had lots of challenges along the way, and it's just important to stick to your values. And if you know you're good at something, just carry on, and things are going to work out fine. So I think just keep living life and keep enjoying life no matter what comes your way.
Mm,
Uh, Everything is going to pass. And I think the second thing will just be, you know, I really believe a lot in yin and yang, the Chinese methodology. So
right.
I think that's something that I'm always trying to work on personally myself. That's where I just believe that to be that, look, everybody has, light and dark inside them, and what your goal every day is when you wake up should be how much light can I bring in today,
Mm,
and that can be personally for you, spiritually for you, or just for the rest of the world, right?
right.
So that's what I try and do. That's what I try and do, and that's what I would say, that even if you're having a bad day, you can still impact someone else's day in a positive way.
Mm,
So
wow.
I really believe that it's something that you have a choice every single morning, every single day, every single moment of what you want to do. So just try and do something good.
Right. I mean, those are great pearls of wisdom. You know, it goes back to kind of your journey of being open to life experiences and just enjoying life and doing what you love.
Yeah,
But also having that balance, right? You need balance in your life. Everyone, there's good, there's bad, and that will never change. Um, so really, really wonderful pearls of wisdom. I just want to mention to all the viewers here that actually Abhinav's Nextract Consulting um, is opening internship opportunities. I believe, Abhinav, you were mentioning that it's not open for high schoolers, but if you are in university,
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? If you are in
Yeah.
university or you just graduated and you need some experience, this is a great way, to get experience. I think if you've been watching this video, you'd be learning from a very, very great mentor. And I think he has a lot to offer in terms of knowledge, in terms of his experience and things he can share. Um, and you would be contributing, to helping people improve their lives and achieve their goals.
Yeah.
Abhinav, for those who want to know more about that, but not just that, maybe they want to know more about your counseling services. They want to know more about how you could help them get into a university, or how you could help them give some advice on how to
Right.
prioritize. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you'll find our website. It's called Nextract Consulting. So the T is common between next and track. So NEXTRACK consulting.com, and you'll be able to find career opportunities there, the internship opportunities, and you'll be able to get in touch with us through the website. That'll be the best way.
All right, fantastic. So that's nextrack.com, NEXTRACK.com.
Consulting.com. Yeah.
Consulting, sorry.
Nextractconsulting.com. Yeah.
But NEXTRACK consulting.com. For
Yeah.
everyone listening who is interested, I will leave a link in the description below for you to just click on. If you want more information, please go to the website. Again, I think it's a very good opportunity that Abhinav and Nextract Consulting is offering for those who are looking to get into the job industry and gain a lot of useful experience. So thank you again, Abhinav, for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I think we could keep going, but
Same
we'll
here,
end it
David.
here.
Yeah.
I know you're a busy man. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone, for
Thanks for
listening.
having me.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you like this, please leave some comments. Perhaps if Abhinav is generous enough to come back, we can address some of those comments. We can address some of your questions in another session. So thank you again, Abhinav. I'll let you go for now. I know you're a busy man. So thanks,
Thanks a lot,
everyone.
David. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take
Take
care.
care.
Bye-bye.